Well, she was delayed many times due to weather, but on Saturday, August 24th, 17-year-old Elizabeth BANDUCCI attempted to swim the very challenging 20 kilometers across Lake Erie to raise money to fight human trafficking. Elizabeth, so great to see you. And GLENDYNE GERRARD, you are the director of Defend Dignity, the cause that she was raising money for. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so we need a drum roll because you're probably wondering, did she do it? How did it go?
It was actually really good. The first 4 hours were iffy because we had cross current, so the current was against me, but we were swimming into better water, so it went really well.
You started on the American side, and did you do it? Did you make the 20 kilometers?
Yes, it ended up being 23 kilometers after with the current, but we made it.
You did it! Congratulations! How did that feel?
At the end, it felt amazing. When we were getting closer to the end, it was taking forever, but like the overall feeling, it was great.
Oh, congratulations. It's such a great accomplishment. And you never know with that Lake Erie, right? Yeah. So unpredictable, but no storms, thankfully. No lightning this time.
Thank goodness.
Now, GLENDYNE, this young girl contacted you and said, hey, I want to make a difference for human trafficking. What was that like for you to hear somebody who just wanted to do so much for the cause?
Well, you know, first of all, I was a little bit surprised. You don't often get, I think it was an email saying, I want to do this and I'd love to do it for this reason. So it was absolutely delightful. It was just great to be there with her, watching, waiting, cheering her on from the shoreline. And yeah, it was actually a bit emotional. Because I think it sort of hit me that the same drive that she had to do this, the same stamina that it takes to train and to actually do this, is really what it takes for survivors to successfully leave that life behind. So yeah, I was actually a bit teary when she came out of the water. Yeah, it was pretty special.
And you see that drive with survivors all the time. Tell me a little bit about what Defend Dignity does.
Well, we work to end all forms of sexual exploitation in Canada, and we do that focusing on 3 A words. So we raise awareness and education, we advocate for law and policy reform, and with Canadian companies that we think need to change some practices and policies, and then with aid. And so that's the Survivor Support Fund that we make available twice a year so that survivors with the agencies that they work with churches that they're working with, can apply to us for funding for absolutely anything. We've helped them with all sorts of things.
We have a little bit more about that Survivor Support Fund. Take a look.
I'd like to share with you one of the stories of a young person who accessed the Survivor Support Fund. This was a young woman who came to our agency to access service about 2 years ago. And at this time, she was really struggling to manage some of her trauma symptoms and was struggling with substance use as well. She identifies as a survivor of domestic human trafficking. She applied for the Survivor Support Fund to replace a piece of her furniture. So this was to replace her bed, which acted as a trigger for her and a real reminder of some of the traumas that she had experienced. And so the support was access to replace this piece of furniture.
I think the reality is for most women, without the support of organizations and the Survivor Support Fund, is that they would end up going back into the sex industry because there's no alternative ways or other ways for them to support their families or move forward.
That's incredibly touching, just thinking about the trauma related to the bed, something I wouldn't have thought of, but of course, so true and so amazing that you can kind of help them move on from that.
Yeah, we've helped with all sorts of things. Getting a survivor back to the city she was trafficked from, removing tattoos because they're often branded by their pimps, and so they want to get rid of that when they leave that life. Debt repayment, they're in debt thanks to their traffickers so often. So really, yeah, it's a wide scope, and I'm so grateful that we're able to help that way.
I am too. And Elizabeth, tell me, what is it about human trafficking that so captured your heart that you said, I want to do something to make a difference?
I think when I first was looking for a cause, I had a few things I wanted to do a fundraiser for, but then I heard a story of trafficking happening like 15 minutes from my house, and it was of girls that were like 13 years of age. And it really hit me because in school we always have talks about anti-bullying, anti-drugs, and smoking, but we never have talks on sexual exploitation and human trafficking. It's happening around us, but we sweep it under the rug because I actually asked my teacher, I was like, why don't we have talks about this? And she said, well, we kind of just hope that it doesn't happen to someone we know, but it does, and that's a reality, and I think we need to bring more awareness to it. And I knew that I could do that by doing this.
And it is girls your age and even younger who are being recruited in school, right where you are, right, and through social media. So were you thinking of these women, like during the tough parts of the swim when, you know, maybe you were struggling a little hard or whatever, were you thinking about the cause and like why you're doing it?
Of course, like I wanted to finish the swim because I knew that even though the swim was hard, and even through training, the training and the swim itself was really hard, but I knew that throughout the whole thing I was helping someone, and someone was getting something out of this other than myself. Like I was helping these girls who were struggling.
Good for you. What a heart you have. Glendine, you know, she was talking about girls in her very own school, girls down the road. So a lot of times when we talk about human trafficking, people think overseas, or at least if they think it happens here in Canada, they're thinking that women from overseas are being trafficked to Canada. What is the reality actually?
Reality is that 90% of domestic trafficking, well, it's domestic, 90% are Canadian girls and women, boys a little bit, but primarily it's females that are being trafficked. So yeah, it blows our minds to think that it literally does happen around the corner with kids. And 13 and a half is the average age. So
I was going to say, what is the typical girl, like how would you describe the typical girl described? So 13 and a half year old.
Yeah, 13 and a half. She really could be anybody. In our country, Indigenous women and girls are the most trafficked. They make up over 50% of the victims, even though they represent less than 4% of our population.
Wow.
Kids in government care are also very vulnerable towards trafficking. But really, you know, it can be anybody. And thanks to social media these days, everybody needs to be on the lookout. And we tell parents all the time, monitor your kids on social media because those apps are definitely the places where people are being recruited. So we need to be aware.
It's a big, scary world out there.
It is.
And there you are making a difference. So how much money have you raised so far for Defend Dignity?
So as of yesterday morning, we raised $12,000.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. Oh, I think you're going to be an inspiration to so many parents watching too, who it takes a parent to say, okay, I'm going to support this dream of my daughters, right? Because it's a lot of time, training, right? Yeah. Like, what was the preparation for this swim?
We've trained for a year, and I swim 5 days a week, mornings and afternoons, and I've raced and stuff. So yeah, a lot of preparation, and then getting the nutrition on track too. So.
You got some good parents. You know, we see human trafficking. It feels like it keeps growing. It's one of the fastest growing crimes in the world. Glendine, from your perspective as somebody who deals with it every day, are we going to be able to eradicate? Is it possible to eradicate this modern day form of slavery?
Well, you know, our mission statement is that together we're going to end sexual exploitation in Canada. I don't know whether it's going to happen in my day and age, but I say we all need to be aware. We need to be working hard at this, working together to really make a difference and see if we can make it happen. We're going to make a dent in it, for sure.
Absolutely, a dent for sure. And Elizabeth, what would you say if there's someone watching saying, you know, I want to make a difference in this issue or any issue that's really grabbed their heart, but I don't know where to start, or I don't know what can I do as one person? What would you say to them?
I would say do everything you can. Like if you have a thought of some way you could help, then go for it. Like if you think like, oh, I could just email this charity and that could be a step forward for you. You just need to start making a change. Just start with any way you can.
So inspiring. Glendine, thank you for all that your organization does in this fight. And I know it takes a lot of persistence to keep moving forward, a lot of heartbreak in this fight, but thank you for all you're doing.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And Elizabeth, thank you for just grabbing this issue, like taking it into your hand and saying, I can do something. I can make a difference. $12,000 and hopefully more to come.
Hopefully. Thank you for having me on the show and helping us bring awareness to our fundraiser and the cause.
Oh, it's been great. We've been cheering you on.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.